Real World News, live from Moscow at RT International. Denmark's ruling party has landed itself in hot water over its latest campaign on immigration policies. Posters reading, "If you come to Denmark, you need to work," next to the photo of the Danish Prime Minister have sprung up across the country, with another ad calling for stricter rules for asylum seekers. The Left Party in neighbouring Sweden deemed the whole campaign as racist and hit back with posters of its own, quote, "If you come to Malmö, you're welcome." The man behind the reaction ads told us what he found so offensive in the Danish posters.
There are many people that live in Denmark who are not immigrants, who do not work today, who do not have jobs. So what we're saying is that there's nothing wrong for asking people to go to work. What we're saying is that ask everybody to go to work. Ask Danish citizens, people that are born and raised in Denmark, to go to work. Ask everybody, not point out a certain group and say, when you live here, you have to work. When you do that, you are reproducing stereotypes that people have on that group. And most of the time, the group that they point out, immigrants in this case, are people that are already, victims of so many circumstances, social issues, political issues, economic issues. Some of them are refugees. To attack them this way by pointing them out and scapegoating them, it doesn't make things easier. That's not how you build a society.
Immigrants make up around 9% of the Danish population. And a recent study found that 3 out of 4 refugees that came to the country in the early 2000s are still unemployed 10 years later. The immigration issue not just limited to Denmark. The majority of Brits see immigration as a problem for their country, with the French and Italians not far behind. Relations between the Ukrainian authorities and one of the country's most influential tycoons has hit a new low. Igor Kolomoisky has now resigned as a regional governor. RT's Murad Gazdiev picks up the story here.
It's probably worth making introductions. Meet Igor Kolomoisky, one of Ukraine's richest and most powerful oligarchs. He's a citizen of Israel, Cyprus and Ukraine. The constitution may ban dual citizenship, but he argues that it doesn't say anything about triple citizenship. Ever since the Maidan coup in Ukraine, though, Kolomoisky has been loyal to the new authorities, glorifying them through his mass media outlets, raising and equipping, sponsoring entire armies. That was the Dnieper battalion in action in eastern Ukraine. It's been at the forefront of government efforts to crush dissent in the east. It's well-equipped, 2,000 strong and totally loyal to Kolomoisky. In return for his support, the government's given him leeway. He's been given an entire region to govern, and the shady deals he made with the previous corrupt government have been allowed to stand until now. The drama began over a state energy company, Ukernafta, which is majority owned by the government. For years, though, Kolomoisky had his man at the top, and that man made sure his boss got all the lucrative government orders. Kiev, though, apparently had enough and ordered Kolomoisky's man out, and that didn't go down well with the oligarch. In the middle of the night, an armed force with a billionaire at its head shows up in the middle of the capital and barges into the company's headquarters.
Сидишь тут и караулишь. Чё ты молчишь? Говори давай, вопросы есть у тебя еще? Или язык засунул?
Kolomoisky was filmed swearing and raving about bandits, raiders and Russian saboteurs, anything it seems to save his cash cow. The Ukrainian government has now set an ultimatum. Either those men leave or, well, there's not much clarity on what happens next. Kolomoisky himself blames the president, fellow billionaire Petro Poroshenko, for orchestrating all of this. And you can see why. Here you have an unelected oligarch with private armies who dares challenge the government with force.
Defense will be subject to a power vertical. There will be no governor with his own pocket armies.
A warning, perhaps. Either way, what better way to get rid of the competition than with a public mandate?
Meanwhile, a city in southern Ukraine, violence erupted at a construction site where the ownership is being contested. Armed men from the nationalist rights sector group, which is allegedly funded by Kolomoisky, stormed the area and were fought back by a private security force. Shots were fired and several people were injured. There's been public outrage that part of a city park is being privately redeveloped. According to some reports, city prosecutors are now trying to prove the move was illegal. The governor of Japan's Okinawa Island has suspended a land reclamation project which would see the relocation of a large American military base. Local officials say the underwater construction is harmful to the local environment. The U.S. marine activity in Okinawa is also increasingly unpopular among the locals. The island houses around 30,000 Americans who make up the bulk of Washington's military presence in Japan. Almost 20% of Okinawa's territory is occupied by U.S. bases, and the island's governor says there won't be any new ones until further notice.
Okinawa Prefecture will conduct an investigation, which we believe to be necessary. I have made an order to suspend all work which could alter the current condition of the seabed until our investigation is complete, and we give a new order.
But the governor's decision has not been backed by the central government in Tokyo. In fact, a spokesman for the ruling cabinet says the relocation of the American military base will proceed as planned.
I don't see any reasons to stop the work at this point, so we will calmly continue to work, including a drilling survey.
Now, the U.S. will continue increasing its military presence in Asia in order to put pressure on China. That's according to non-proliferation activist Bruce Gagnon.
Japan, and particularly Okinawa, becomes a key installation there for the U.S. to expand military operations. This is all part of Obama's announced pivot to move 60% of U.S. military forces into the Asia-Pacific in order to encircle China. They need more barracks for their soldiers. They need more ports of call for their ships. And they need more airfields for the planes sending into the region. So all of this is really coming down heavy on the people of Okinawa, and they've just had it. They've had enough of the pollution and the environmental degradation. They've had enough of the taking of their lands. And also the treatment by the GIs of the people on Okinawa has been very bad, raping a lot of women, harming children. It's just been a bad situation. And so the Okinawan people have really forced their local government, their island government, to push back against the Abe government.
To some other global news in brief, Yemen is asking for help from Gulf nations and the UN Security Council to force back the advance of Shia militants. Rebels already control the capital, Sana'a, and they've been tightening their grip on a southwestern province. On Tuesday, militants opened fire on a group of civilians who were demanding the rebels withdraw from an area seized over the weekend. And chaos broke out in a seaside town in central Chile during a protest against new fishing quotas. Demonstrators went head-to-head with police, blocking the streets with boats and burning tires. Protesters say the new rules would benefit large companies and push independent fishermen out of business. The Islamic terror group Boko Haram has kidnapped more than 400 women and children from a town in northern Nigeria. Locals say the militants also massacred 50 people in the town. It's the latest in a series of mass kidnappings by the jihadists. Last April, they abducted nearly 300 schoolgirls, sparking international outrage.